Alright, so hopefully I have a better mic this time, so we're going to do this again. These are the digital games that I have on the PS3. The PS3 e-store shut down some time ago, and around the time it was shutting down, I researched the subject and found some games to buy with a limited, amount of money I had at the time. And the PS3 has one of the best electronic store selection, of a lot of any console. Maybe some people might argue. I don't know if I would agree, but it has quite a selection. Regardless, it doesn't really matter. So, Arc the Lad 2, I'm really excited to play it. The first one I played last year. I did beat it. It is a really good game. It's very short but sweet. Sometimes you want a shorter RPG experience, and it's a tactical RPG game where you use strategies and tactics with moving your units on a grid and stuff like that. The second one sounds even better than the first, I guess. The story sounds really interesting. Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3 FES, the third game in the series, and it was still called Shin Megami Tensei, you'll notice. It was just an offshoot of SMT, back when. And so I'm really excited to play the earlier titles in the series in particular because of that. So, I had to get this game for that reason. Tulip is a really odd, quirky, very Japanese game. Pretty obscure and not easy to, have your own copy of this one. So it was definitely one of those ones that otherwise it'd be hard to play it. And you go around town kissing citizens, like it says. So basically, it's kind of like a dating simulator or something. I don't know how to exactly phrase it. I mean, you're just literally, you can just kiss random people and be like, okay, let's see what happens if I kiss this person. It's very bizarre, if you want to call it a dating sim. Persona 2, Eternal Punishment. I have played a little bit of it. I never played any of Persona 3. Just a very classic game. So I'm excited to play more of it, but I can't really comment too much on the game. Suikoden 2, I beat last year. This has a ton of different characters, a huge cast of characters a la Chrono Cross. So it has a lot of replayability. My favorite aspect of the game was the sense that you eventually got your own castle, and when you would recruit different people, you would find them in your castle doing various things. For example, one of them is a cook. So if you recruited the cook, he's in the kitchen cooking, and sometimes he'll do a cooking tournament against someone else that comes from some foreign kingdom. So, there's this sense that you have your little microcosm, but it's got all these different parts from the macrocosm, and you get a feeling of what it must have been like to actually be a king of your own castle on some level. So that was really, fun. I like the world building, I would say, is what I would call it, of the game, because, you talk to everyone, you figure everything out, you recruit as many people as you can, and then you build your own world within your castle from that sampling of the world, like I was saying, micro versus macro. Stella Dias, The Gate of Eternity. I like RPGs that are about Myst. Legend of Legaia on the PlayStation was probably the first title that I ever played. I don't know how many people remember it, but again, Myst is turning people into monsters in that game as well as this game. It's an Atlas game, which Atlas is one of my favorite game developers, and it can be kind of hard to find their games sometimes. So I really wanted, this one to try out. And it's, a turn-based kind of RPG. House of the Dead 4. I wish I had not gotten it at the end of the day because I thought you could play it with a controller, but you need a gun comm or something like that because at a certain point in the game you can't move forward anymore. There's something you have to do with the gun comm, and so it's a pretty difficult to find title, and it's a really good one. And so I was researching and I found this is one of the ones that I considered would be a good kind of two-player game. I love the kind of two-player, shooting kind of games like this where it's more of a stationary and, you're just shooting targets as the screen moves along. So it's a really good game, but I can only go so far with it, and a gun comm is pretty expensive on the PS3. So I can't really recommend this to people as far as having it on their PS3 unless they actually have the gun comm. Unless I'm missing something and there is a way to go past, but I tried all kinds of things. But it is a really good game up until that point. I would rather a different game be in its place, given that circumstance. So we have Nobunaga's Ambition, Rise to Power. This is back in the Warring States period of Japan. It's a tactical RPG, turn-based, something like Final Fantasy Tactics, or you know what I mean, those kind of games. And it's historically accurate to what was going on in Japan at that time. So it's a little bit of history. It's like a history lesson in a game on some level that's pretty accurate to my reading anyway. I've played, I think, one mission of it, and it was, fun enough. So it looks like a pretty cool game, pretty obscure title. Ark the Lad, I've already, talked about it. Really good game, really recommend it if you want something shorter. Growlancer or Growlancer, I'm not sure, Heritage of War. This is also another tactical RPG. Pretty obscure, not easy to find. So I love tactical RPGs that are turn-based. So I got this one too. Can't really say anything else about it. Haven't played it. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2, Raidu Kuzunoa versus King Abaddon. And like I was saying in the first video, Abaddon is the angel of the bottomless pit, also known as Apollyon. And so Apollyon is the Greek, and it's basically like Apollo without his chariot. And so he's down in the bottomless pit, apparently. And remember, it says it's an angel of the bottomless pit in this document. It doesn't say a fallen angel. It doesn't say a devil. So I just want to put that out there. It's interesting. So that's who you're facing in the game. And this is a more action-oriented SMT title. It's very hack and slash. I played a little bit of one of the titles, and they're just pretty obscure. It's hard to come by in the West. I'm sure in Japan they are pretty permeated with SMT and Mega 10 in general. Tokyo Jungle, it was an exclusive PS3 game, also exclusive to the digital store only. So both of those simultaneously. And it's a third creature perspective game where it's the end of the world and you're trying to survive. And you're these bigger creatures that are roaming the Tokyo jungle, right? Because it's no longer Tokyo as we knew it. Grandia 3, I can't really say. I haven't played the second nor the third one, so obviously I'm first going to play the second. I have the Grandia collection on the Switch, and I played the first Grandia. It was a good game, but there are way better games. I'm actually going to talk about that game, one of those games next. One of the main games, I would say, that is really a classic RPG that people really need to check out So I've heard from a friend that Grandia 2 is better than 1. I've heard another friend of mine say 2 is not better than 1. So I'm not sure what I'll think, and I don't know what I think of the third one by the time I get to it either. So we'll see. So this is Xenogears, and I would really recommend this game to people, and it was something else to play it as a kid. I guess a young kid, really. I was, more like 12 or 13 or something when I was playing it, roughly. I don't know exactly, but it was a long time ago, and trauma doesn't help you remember things very well. So the story is a lot to grasp if you're a teenager. I don't think I'd say most teenagers who played this game really didn't understand the story, or they really had to look deep into it. And it's made in such a way that you don't have to understand really the deeper story exactly to appreciate the game and enjoy it. And I would describe it as, Gundam Wing has Faye, and the main character in this one is Faye Fong Wong, as it says there in the description. And to me, Faye was terribly represented in Gundam Wing. He really doesn't come across the right way, I guess, especially in the English dub of it. But he feels kind of like a Billy, which I'm referencing Power Rangers here. And Billy was really underutilized as a character. He was supposed to be the smartest one of the Power Rangers, but he was often doing really stupid things, and he really wasn't developed as a character. And so Faye felt that way in Wing. So jumping back to Xenogears as the subject here, this is a more complete Faye in my estimation, for people that really have this mecha anime fandom, and they love it and everything. This is really something to play and to get a better sense of Faye. So I would almost just rather get rid of the Faye just that's in Gundam Wing, and substitute this one, because it's such a more developed character, and I don't know how to do this game justice when I try to talk about it. It's very philosophic. There's a lot of layers to it. It's mind-blowing, honestly. I mean, I could say some things, but I feel like I'd be ruining the game. It's really shocking sometimes in a horrific way. The scene I'm thinking of, is just horrific. But it's a recapitulation of, things we've always done to each other as humanity that is despicable. So, yeah, the game just has to be checked out, and it just grows fonder with age. I feel like it's really cool that I played such a deep game when you were younger, and then to pick it up again now that your prefrontal cortex is more developed and everything, and then you can more understand really what the game is getting at. Parasite Eve is kind of an obscure game. I think there's a bit more notoriety about it as time has passed. There's enough people that they're calling for a remake and stuff like that, but it's still kind of an elusive title. Not everyone knows about it. It's based on a novel of the same name, and I was fortunate to be able to read the novel. It's very rare and expensive, and they had it at my local library. This is sci-fi horror. It has something of a turn-based. It's like a blend of action RPG elements with turn-based elements, and I think it does it really good justice as someone who more prefers turn-based RPGs. This one made me reach a point where I could actually appreciate a turn-based yet mostly action RPG. So what that looks like is when you're in a battle, you get into a confrontation, you can see them on the screen. No, you can't. It's just like a random encounter spawn point. So if you don't like random encounters, you probably won't like it exactly. But I like that it's a balance between that it's not technically exactly random. If you step on this hot spot in the game, you might get in a battle, or you will at first, and then you're able to move around a little part of the screen, and so is the enemy. And you have to dodge attacks. They have certain patterns, so there's dodging going on. But once it's your turn, your gauge, uh, your ATB gauge fills up, and then you get to pause the game basically and open the menu. And if you want to cast magic, you can. If you want to hit them with your weapon, she has usually a gun or a club or something. Aabria is a police officer in the game. Then you attack from there, and then you keep dodging. So it's a really good balance, and the story is amazing. So it's about mitochondria. Mitochondria is the energy powerhouse of the cell. It produces ATP, adenosine triphosphate or something. I'm probably misremembering exactly. It's something like that. It can create thousands and thousands of volts of electricity. Just this organelle within the cell. And it has its own unique genetic code, an RNA strand, aside of the DNA that's in the nucleus of the cell. So the idea is that the mitochondria is a parasite, right? Hence parasite. And then Eve factors in because, as far as I understand, science and most scientists have concluded that there was an original ancestor of all humanity. She's from Africa. Her name is Mitochondrial Eve. And so basically a character gets requisitioned by their own mitochondria, and the story becomes Parasite Eve. And that's what the story is about. And it sounds so fanciful on some level. But the terrifying thing is that it's actually pretty realistic, that something like this is possible, a distinct possibility. And many military scientists around the world are advancing mitochondrial understanding. This in the same way that we wanted to crack the atom and we wanted to be able to utilize that power. This is now on the level of the organelle that we're trying to do a similar thing. And we know that it's has tremendous amounts of power that we could then utilize for different things. And there's all kinds of things, conclusions you could reach as to what we can do with this kind of mitochondrial biologic understanding, right? So a fascinating, amazing story, good gameplay, very good music. The soundtrack is stunning in this game. I literally bought it at some point because that's how much it's an amazing soundtrack. Can't say enough about this game, that it's amazing, and very overlooked by some people anyway. So Final Fantasy Tactics, the first tactical Final Fantasy game, and I'm playing it again. I'm sure people see the videos in my channel. One of them is actually doing pretty well. I was surprised, and I think it's because the remake, I think, is here or is coming. I haven't really paid attention. I'm not excited for remakes a lot of the time. I think if it's a game that was originally so good, you more should remaster it. And I don't know, it's questionable to me if you're going to remake something. And a lot of remakes I don't like as much as the original, having played a lot of remakes. When I played it when I was younger, I got to what's called Ryovane's Castle, and maybe some people remember that. So there's this save point before you get into this boss battle there, and I was stupid and I didn't have some other save because I didn't expect that the game would just suddenly be like, do you want to save the game? And by the way, I'm not going to tell you that if you save the game you cannot go back and grind. So if you can't beat this boss, then you're just screwed. I'm not going to tell you that. So I will tremendously fault the game for that. It's kind of feels like false advertising. Like, yeah, I'm going to save because I'll be safe, and then in all reality you're screwed. And I tried everything I could with my characters. I even got to this boss has a second form. I'm just like, and you didn't even tell me that if I saved here I'd be screwed. And you're going to have a second form on this, MFer, right? So I never was able to beat Rylevane's Castle. There goes like, I don't know, what was it, like 30 to 50 hours of playing a game just down the toilet because the game gives you this false sense of security. And my instinct as an RPG player is always just save whenever you can. If it says save, something's coming and you better save, and you'll be better off if you save. So it literally goes against the instinct of the RPGer, and it's retarded. But the story is really good, actually, and I could not appreciate it as much when I was younger. I didn't really understand that sometimes war is necessary, or that there is something you can learn from studying war history. And I didn't really seem to think there was value in that on some level. Again, I still think war is terrible and it should be avoided at all costs, or whatever you want to say. But, at one point in the game, it reminded me of post-World World War One Germany, right? Post WW1 Germany, where they had a civil war, because there was such a lack of resources in Ivalice, I think is where I was at in particular, is the name of the kingdom. That's why there's all these roving bands of thieves and mercenaries in some cases that are trying to deal with the problem. And literally one of the groups that you as the Hakutin or whatever the hell their name is are attacking, they're called the Death Squad. And that's directly referencing what the Nazis were doing. So it's interesting. It's putting this kind of fascist context within a medieval setting and a medieval time period, right? And it's a lot better story than I would have said when I was younger. Breath of Fire 4. I want to play all of the Breath of Fires. It's a Capcom RPG series. And I've played the first one to some extent, a lot of the second one, almost beat the third one, and I played some of this fourth title. This one has also fog in it, a mist or fog or whatever that's, causing crazy things to happen. So that's part of the story, and it's, been interesting. It came at the end of the life cycle. Sorry, the pollution really bothers me here. Number 4 of BOF came near the end of the PlayStation life cycle, so a lot of people just kind of moved on and they didn't pay attention, and I think it's a lot better game than people want to give it credit for. It's another pretty overlooked title, so that's part of why I wanted to get it. So I really like the idea, though, of the general story. Stop an immortal emperor and save the world. Sounds pretty good, Some of these are PS Plus games that I cannot play anymore because I don't have PS Plus. This was a, to the left, to the right fighter, where you make combos and stuff like that. This was a rhythm game, part futuristic racer, part rhythm game. Really cool game. Would honestly like to be able to play it again sometime. Zone of the Enders is, a mecha anime style, third person perspective battling kind of action game. And this was, the entire collection. But it was, again, these are all PS Plus games that I can't play. This was a really fun, old school retro, vertical shooter, I think, if I'm remembering right. Steins Gate was really interesting. It was a pretty much just a graphic novel in digital form, but it had a lot of interactivity within that. You would learn different Japanese terms, and then you would have a dictionary where you could go look up the term. And I spent so much time just studying the different documents and stuff within the game, things that you can read, not just necessarily reading the text of the main story. And it helped you become acquainted with Japanese culture in this really intimate way that was really fun, that you felt like you were in Japan and you were experiencing their culture. It's about time travel. It's very intelligent, very philosophic, being about time travel. And I would really recommend the game if it was really good if you just wanted to lay back and just read something. It felt like you opened a book on a screen and you got to just enjoy and learn things. And I really appreciated that. Dino Crisis 1 and 2. Dino Crisis I really appreciate because it's one of those games where it made me put pen to paper in order to solve some of the riddles and the puzzles in the game. So I think it's a really good game if you have to sit there and kind of do more in your head to really make progress. So, and then you add dinosaurs in a survival horror context, and you already had me at that because I find dinosaurs fascinating. So this is a really great game. I haven't beaten it yet. I played a decent amount of it with my friend Velo recently. Would really recommend. Haven't played the second one. Can't comment on the second one. The Last Guy is, as you can see from the screen here, this is what it looks like when you're playing the game, and you can picture a little guy with a cape, a red cape, running around in these streets and a bunch of people trailing behind him like lemmings. And this is a survival horror puzzle game that's very B-movie horror. It's very comedic and absurd and ridiculous in that Japanese kind of sensibility. It was digital only, and I don't know if it's been released aside of the PS3. To me, it's a Halloween pastime to try to rescue the idiots and get them to the goddamn helicopter so that they can be saved. And it's not just zombies that you're dealing with in this kind of cramped space like you're seeing with the road and everything. So there are different patterns of enemies, and let's see here. I think O like rallies the people to you, so it makes them move faster and like, get over here, come over here, get in line, get together, get really close, and they move faster. So if you move far away from your trail of people, then they disperse a bit more and it's less concentrated because they're idiots that don't know how to stay in line, right? You can also do a turbo, and the rallying and the turbo, like your character moves faster, but they don't move as fast as you. It all takes energy, and there are different pickups. I think it literally has E on it, and you pick it up and you get more energy when you're wandering around in this kind of environment like you see here. So yeah, really good game, really good concept. If someone says, I'm going to make a survival horror puzzle game, you'd probably look at them pretty funny and wonder if this is really going to work out in the way that there's, because like I literally mean like Tetris, or I don't mean like we're going to sit here and there's an RE0 I think puzzle where it's like these different taxidermied animals, right? And it's like, did the snake come first in the story they give you, or was it the raven? And you have to sit here and think about, like, that's the puzzle aspect of survival horror. But this is literally, let's do columns, let's do Tetris, let's do Lemmings or something with this kind of concept, and it's really unique. And I can't express it very well. You have to play it yourself kind of game to really understand what's really the draw of that. Persona 5, I've played a decent amount of this on hard. I'm going to move away just to make sure you can hear me with the music going on there. It has a really good acid jazz Soundtrack, I just wanted to give you a little taste of it. Cell shaded graphics. The later Persona games were more about a simulation of living a life, and then when you weren't living that simulated life, you were in an RPG context, dungeon crawling in this other world that's within the psyche, basically, is how I would put it, that changes things in the real world by going into the psyche world. I don't know how to best explain the game. Again, Persona itself is a psychological concept, and that's really what the game is about on some level. And so it's a really great game, and I'm really getting challenged with the game on hard. I don't know if I'm going to keep playing it on hard. It's really challenging. You cannot just, per se grind and just get to a higher level, because the only time you can get attacked by enemies is when you're in this psyche world and you're very vulnerable, and eventually you just need to get back into quote unquote the real world and everything. Metal Gear Solid VR missions, really fun game. I've played a bit more of it. I have the Metal Gear Solid collection on the PS3. I love the way they describe this, from complex murder mysteries to battling giant genome soldiers, and everything else in between is what you do with this. And it's really good for your brain. It's really fun. It really puts Metal Gear in a different context. Definitely worth checking out. At first I was just like, whatever, I like the original game, I don't want to play the VR missions. But as I got older, I really appreciated this one more. Of course, Metal Gear Solid, Hideo Kojima is a brilliant genius video game developer, and this game changed video games landscape forever. It made it more cinematic. It brought a movie-like flair to video games that was very unique and fresh, at least at the time. It was the first Metal Gear game I ever played. There's a lot of really good memories with the game, a lot of memorable scenes. I cannot recommend the game enough. It's a masterpiece. One of the best games on the PlayStation. It'd probably have to be on my top 5 somewhere for PlayStation games. This one is amazing. Silent Hill, pretty expensive to get a copy of it physically, but pretty inexpensive, a lot of these ones in the PS3 eStore. I like Silent Hill 2 the best of the ones I've played. I've played a little bit of Downpour. I've beaten 3, I've beaten 2, I've beaten 1. I've played a decent amount of 4. 2 is still my favorite. This one is a really good beginning game in the series. Being able to kind of look at up to 4 and pretty confidently say I've played these games and this is what I think of them. This was a really good opener for the series. And it's so nostalgic, I guess, to play it at this point. It really takes you to some other town called Silent Hill. And it's really bizarre and confounding and strange. And they did such a good job with the game. It has some really good puzzles, too. There is a keyboard puzzle, and it's earlier in the game, to my recollection. I really love that keyboard puzzle. The piano, I guess is what I should be saying. There's a piano puzzle. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I haven't played every Castlevania, but this is the one I played the most of. Alucard is, an anagram of Dracula. It's a palindrome, not at all. Because we try to reverse it, it's not the same word. Alucard then is the main character in this story, and he has big daddy issues. Daddy Dracula is really lost his mind, and his son Alucard is having none of that. He has big beef with Daddy, so much so that he's gonna go to Daddy's little castle and seek to get to Daddy himself, and then kick Daddy's ass and say, Daddy, why are you such an idiot? You knew I was gonna kick your ass. So as someone that has daddy issues, this one is great. I feel about like Alucard a lot of the time, and society feels like a father that is corrupt to me. It is literally a patriarchy. Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. A very good friend of mine would play this one back in the day. It's got a lot of puzzle and it's third person perspective, moving around blocks, things like that. 3D third perspective platforming, with some action elements. You're a vampire that is pissed off at your own kind, so you've made it your mission to go and kick their goddamn donkey. So it's a really good game. I really want to play it more sometime and beat it. Honestly, it's a really good game. This is the first game in the same series. This is Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. This is a really good game. It's very old school though, and I could see some new school people not really liking it very much, feeling like it's very clunky and kind of odd to play this one. But it was designed for the computer first, so it really has that point and click kind of aspect to it, and there's action, combat from a top down kind of perspective with very old school graphics, some puzzles and stuff. I've played a decent amount of it. It's a really good game, and I couldn't see how it led up to the second one. Devil May Cry HD collection. Capcom, this game requires skill. I'll be playing these games, really, this collection, I guess, for a really long time once I get to it. Devil May Cry, you're Dante, he's a demon hunter. So your business is to go kick demon ass. It's can be a pretty challenging hack and slash gun, kind of game. Very intricate, a lot to it, a lot of layers to it. Good game. Capcom often doesn't disappoint. Resident Evil Remake. Huge fan of Resident Evil here. This game gave you some different kind of enemies, and I'm just gonna not spoil it for people, that felt as menacing in some respects as Nemesis in the third title in the series. So they really did something that improved it as a remake, and they mostly kept it very much in line with what it was originally, but just updated the graphics. You don't have to use tank controls in this one if you don't want to, even more than the original title. So if you want to have free movement on some level, it's there. I love the tank controls, honestly. I don't know, there's something about it that just really works so well. You feel the tension and the panic, and in my mind the character is moving like a tank because they're frightened out of their freaking mind. Like, can you imagine seeing what some of these characters have seen in Resident Evil? So you're just moving really clunkily and you're just like, holy shit. So it just does something psychologically to the game and the experience that I think is really redeeming, and a lot of people really hate tank controls, but anyway, aside of my tangent here, this is a really good game. I don't often like remakes, but it's different enough that I appreciate it, and I would say Capcom did a pretty good job with this one. I think RE2 is my favorite remake they've ever done, but this one is probably the second. So RE2, the original, speaking of which, I really love this game, really wanted a copy of it, so I had to get it. I think I got it on a Halloween sale, and it was like a year before they closed down the store or something like that. I just felt like it really redefined the horror genre and gave it more of an urban zombie setting. It really, so much growth compared to the first game. They really did a lot to do something different and improve what they had. The first game, you're only in a mansion. In this game, you eventually are in a police station, but at first you're, outside in the city. And it does such an amazing job for 1996 of making you feel how vulnerable it is to be outside, when all of these dangerous zombies are around. It has my favorite knife system of any Resident Evil title, and I've played up to 7. I've beaten 6. So 1 through 6 I've beaten. And this one is my favorite knife system, such that I am devoting myself to knife only RE2 and really trying to figure out my own best way to do that. And there are some Kendo gun shop knife only runs in here. And eventually I was able to defeat all the zombies that attack you there with just the knife. So really, really amazing game. And then the remake just took it and made it something even more amazing for a new generation. So I really commend them on that, Capcom. RE3 Nemesis. I think I underrated it when I first played it. I really didn't care for it. I didn't want to be in Raccoon City again. I wanted something different, and it just felt like more of the same when I was younger. But this is actually quite an amazing title. As far as the scare factor and the menacing factor and everything, I don't want to ruin it too much for everyone, but wow, did this one really deliver in a way that no other RE title ever has been able to do for me. So, I love this game. It's overlooked by some people. It has a harder mode. It has somewhat roguelike progressions. It's not... So roguelike means that it's randomized every time you play it. It's brand new again. But in this game, there are many different ways you can go and different things you can do that influence eventually where you end up being and on some level anyway what you're doing. I mean, there's the main story and you're still doing that. It has a gunpowder system that is really unique and really cool. So this one is amazing and I can't recommend it enough. I want to beat the game with defeating Nemesis on hard mode every time he attacks you, which is going to be hard. RE4, I bought it when it came out back in the day. I don't like it as much as some people. This is where RE took a more action-oriented gameplay stance, and it was less about puzzles and less about survival horror, and it was more like you're playing Gunsmoke in a modern context, now that they have more graphics and there's more they can do with it. And it's fun, for what it is, but it just leaves me wanting to play an older school title that actually has more survival horror, has that tension and those tank controls and everything. I like that better. So yeah, I'll just kind of keep it short. It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but I would always rather be playing an old school sensibility Resident Evil title. RE Code Veronica X, the best story of any Resident Evil game. So really worth checking out. Quite a story to this one. Alright, so RE0 is, I think, an underrated title in the series. I really love the story of Marcus, the mad scientist, and the leeches. It's a really good story. It has some really interesting gameplay dynamics that are unique in the series. You have 2 characters that you can control at the same time. The second character you obviously can't control as well as the first, but it's not bad. And you can also drop items on the ground. There is no chest where you store your items in the game. And the game is actually really challenging in hard mode. So a lot of people say Code Veronica is the hardest game, and I would say play this game on hard and get back to me. Have fun. And be careful. Be aware of where you're dropping items, because you might regret it later, and you might end up having an impasse on hard mode and having to start all over again. I'm not gonna say, but I'm gonna hint. It was ridiculous. Life is Strange takes place in Oregon, in the fictional area of Arcadia Bay, and it follows the character named Max. I think she's in college. She goes to a fictional university, and she loves photography. She's majoring in photography, but she learns she has a special power to roll back time when she sees what happens in time and be able to change what happens. So the game is about the butterfly effect, basically, and how your different choices cause different outcomes and different things to happen. Really, really good game. Very atmospheric. Takes place during October, near Halloween. Really well-written story. Really immersive way that they present it in this kind of cinematic style. And you have these different choices you can make. Very distinctively gives you an impression of what it's like to live in Oregon, or what the people are like here. Things like that. Really good game. It's by Squeenix and Don't Nod Entertainment.